The morning sun filtered through the thick canopy of Jirisan National Park as Dr. Hana Kim knelt beside a massive oak tree. Her fingers traced the rough bark while she adjusted the strange-looking device attached to its trunk. The biosensor beeped softly in the quiet forest air. Still nothing unusual. Taeho Park called from 20 meters away where he was setting up similar equipment on a pine tree. His voice echoed slightly in the morning stillness. Birds chirped overhead, but otherwise the forest seemed peaceful and ordinary. Hana had been studying these ancient trees for 3 months now. As a botanist at Seoul National University, she was supposed to be researching how tree roots connect with underground fungi. It was important work, but not particularly exciting. Most people found her research boring. Even her colleagues at the university often yawned when she talked about mycorrhizal networks. But today felt different somehow. The biosensor on the oak tree began making rapid clicking sounds. Hana frowned and checked the display screen. The numbers were jumping around wildly. She tapped the device thinking it might be broken. Taeho, come look at this, she called to her research partner. Taeho walked over carrying his own equipment. He was a practical man who preferred facts to theories. After working together for 2 years, he'd learned to trust Hana's instincts, even when her ideas seemed strange. What is it now? He asked, looking at the screen over her shoulder. The electrical readings are off the charts. Look at these patterns. Hana pointed to the wavy lines moving across the display. I have never seen anything like this before. Taeho studied the data for a moment. The patterns did look unusual. Most tree electrical activity showed simple, steady waves. But these readings showed complex spikes and dips that almost looked like Morse code. Maybe the equipment is damaged, he suggested. We have been using it for weeks in rough conditions. Hana shook her head. I checked everything this morning. The equipment is working perfectly. She moved to another tree and attached a second sensor. Within minutes, it was showing the same strange patterns. This is impossible, Taeho muttered. Trees do not generate electrical signals like this. But the evidence was right in front of them. Both sensors were picking up complex electrical activity from different trees. Even stranger, the patterns seemed to be synchronized. When one tree showed a spike, the other showed a dip at almost the same time. Hana felt her heart racing with excitement. In all her years studying plants, she had never encountered anything like this. She quickly set up sensors on 5 more trees spread across a 100-meter area. Every single one showed the same synchronized electrical activity. Taeho, she said quietly, I think these trees are talking to each other. Her research partner laughed nervously. Trees do not talk, Hana. They are plants, not people. But look at the data, she insisted, pointing to her tablet where all the sensor readings were displayed. These electrical patterns are too organized to be random. They look like some kind of communication system. Taeho studied the screen more carefully. The patterns were indeed remarkably organized. They showed regular intervals and repeated sequences that suggested structure rather than chaos. But the idea of trees communicating seemed ridiculous. Even if they are communicating, he said, how could we possibly understand what they are saying? We do not speak tree language. Hana was already thinking ahead. We need to map these signals across a larger area. If this is really communication, there should be a network connecting many trees over long distances. They spent the rest of the day setting up sensors throughout a 2-kilometer section of forest. By evening, they had 20 devices collecting data from trees of different species and ages. The results were astonishing. Every tree was part of the electrical network. The signals traveled from tree to tree through what appeared to be the underground root and fungal systems. When they plotted the signal pathways on a map, it looked exactly like a computer network with nodes and connections. This is incredible, Hana whispered as they reviewed the data back at their small research station. The entire forest is connected. It is like a biological internet. Taeho was no longer skeptical. The evidence was too clear to ignore. But what are they communicating about? He wondered aloud, as if in answer to his question. Their equipment suddenly showed a massive spike in activity across all sensors. The electrical signals intensified dramatically and began showing new patterns they had not seen before. Something is happening, Hannah said, watching the readings climb higher and higher. Then they heard it. A deep rumbling sound coming from the direction of the main hiking trail. Through the trees they could see the headlights of a large truck making its way up the mountain road. Logging truck, Tejo said grimly. They have permits to cut trees in the eastern section. The electrical activity in the forest grew even more intense. The patterns became rapid and urgent looking. It was as if the trees were sending emergency signals to each other. They know, Hannah breathed. The trees know about the logging truck. They are warning each other. Over the next hour they watched in amazement as the electrical signals spread throughout the forest like ripples in a pond. Trees that were kilometers away from the logging site began showing the same urgent activity. Patterns. This changes everything, Hannah said as they packed up their equipment in the growing darkness. If trees can communicate like this, they might be far more intelligent than we ever imagined. Tejo nodded slowly. He was still processing what they had discovered. What do we do now? He asked. We need more data, Hannah replied. And we need to be very careful about who we tell. Most people are not ready to believe that trees can think and communicate. As they walked back through the moonlit forest, Hannah could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. Not by animals or people, but by the trees themselves. The ancient oaks and pines seemed to tower over them with new significance. She placed her hand on the bark of a large maple tree near the trail. For just a moment she could have sworn she felt a gentle electrical pulse beneath her palm, like a heartbeat. Like a greeting. The secret life of trees was no longer secret to her, and somehow she suspected the trees knew it too. 3 weeks had passed since Hannah and Tejo first discovered the trees talking to each other. Every morning they returned to Jurison National Park with more equipment and growing excitement. Their small research station now looked like a high-tech laboratory with computer screens displaying endless streams of data, but they needed help. The electrical patterns from the trees were becoming more complex each day. The signals looked like computer code, but neither Hannah nor Tejo knew enough about programming to decode them properly. We need someone who understands digital communication, Hannah said while staring at the latest readouts. The patterns were beautiful in their complexity, but completely mysterious. Tejo nodded. I know someone who might help. Woo Jin Lee from the Computer Science Department. He specializes in network protocols and data analysis. Can we trust him? Hannah asked. They had agreed to keep their discovery secret until they understood it better. He is a good friend, very curious about unusual problems, and he knows how to keep secrets. The next day, Woo Jin arrived at their research station carrying a backpack full of computer equipment. He was a thin young man with thick glasses who looked more comfortable with machines than people. But his eyes lit up when he saw their data. This is incredible, he said, scrolling through pages of electrical readings. These patterns are definitely not random. They show all the characteristics of organized digital communication. So the trees really are talking, Hannah said. More than talking, Woo Jin replied excitedly. They appear to be sharing data. Look at these repetitive sequences. They look like file transfers or database updates. Over the following days, Woo Jin worked tirelessly to build a translation interface. He connected his computers directly to their biosensors and began running the tree signals through various decoding programs. I am treating the forest like a wireless network, he explained to Hannah and Tejo. Each tree is like a router passing information to other trees. The fungal networks underground are like fiber optic cables carrying the data. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday morning. Wu Jin had been working all night when suddenly his computer screen filled with readable text. "Hannah, come quickly," he shouted. "I think I cracked the code." Hannah and Taeho rushed over to see what looked like a weather report displayed on the screen. But instead of coming from the meteorological office, it was being generated by the forest itself. Temperature dropping, moisture levels rising, wind patterns shifting from southwest. "Prepare for heavy rain in 6 hours," the text read. "The trees are predicting the weather," Taeho said in amazement. "Not just predicting," Wu Jin corrected. "They are sharing real-time environmental data across the entire forest network. Every tree is like a weather station reporting conditions to the others." As they watched, more messages appeared on the screen. Trees were reporting soil conditions, animal movements, and even human activity in different parts of the forest. It was like listening to a vast biological internet. But this is just one forest, Hana realized. What if this network extends beyond Jirisan Park? Wu Jin was already thinking the same thing. "I can modify our equipment to detect signals over longer distances. If there is a larger network out there, we should be able to find it." That afternoon they drove to forests in other parts of South Korea. At every location, they found the same electrical activity. Trees in Seoul's urban parks were connected to trees in remote mountain forests. The network appeared to cover the entire country. "This is impossible," Taeho muttered as they documented forest connections spanning hundreds of kilometers. But the evidence kept growing. Wu Jin discovered that the network used different communication protocols for different types of information. Weather data used one signal pattern. Soil chemistry reports used another. Warnings about threats like fires or diseases used urgent high-priority signals. "The forest has its own internet," Wu Jin said with wonder. "It has been operating for who knows how long without humans ever realizing it existed." Even more amazing were the historical records they began to uncover. The network appeared to store information about past events. Trees were sharing memories of droughts, floods, and climate changes going back decades or even centuries. "Look at this," Hana said, pointing to a data stream showing temperature records. "The network has detailed climate information going back over 100 years. The trees have been keeping track of environmental changes far longer than human weather stations." The forest network was not just sharing current information. It was maintaining a vast database of historical knowledge passed down from older trees to younger ones. "This explains so much," Taeho said. "How forests coordinate their seasonal changes, how they recover from natural disasters, how they adapt to climate changes. They have been communicating and sharing knowledge all along." But their excitement was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. Dr. So-young Choi, Hana's mentor and head of the university's botany department, arrived at their research station unannounced. "Hana, what exactly are you doing out here?" she asked, looking at all the computer equipment with suspicion. "Your official research project was supposed to be a simple study of root systems." Hana exchanged worried glances with Taeho and Wu Jin. Dr. Choi was a respected scientist but also a careful administrator who did not like unauthorized research projects. "We discovered something unexpected," Hana said carefully. "The trees appear to be communicating through electrical signals." Dr. Choi raised an eyebrow. "Communicating about what exactly?" Wu Jin could not contain his excitement. "They have their own network, like the internet but biological. They share weather data, environmental conditions, even historical records." "That is ridiculous," Dr. Choi said firmly. "Trees are plants. They do not have nervous systems or brains. They cannot communicate like animals." "But we have proof," Hana insisted. She showed Dr. Choi the translated messages on their computer screens. For the next hour, they demonstrated their translation system. They showed Dr. Choi how trees in different locations shared information in real time. They displayed the historical climate data stored in the network. They even showed how the forest could predict weather changes hours in advance. Dr. Choi watched in growing amazement. As a scientist, she could not ignore the evidence, even though it challenged everything she thought she knew about plant biology. "This is either the greatest discovery in botanical history," she said finally, "or you have all gone completely insane." "The network is real," Hana said, "and we think it might extend far beyond South Korea." Dr. Choi sat down heavily in a chair. "If this is true, it changes everything we understand about plant intelligence, about forest ecosystems, about life itself." She looked at the three researchers with a mixture of admiration and concern. "But it also means you have stumbled onto something that could be very dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands." The forest network was no longer their secret alone. Dr. So-Young Choi stared at the computer screens in disbelief. For 2 days she had watched Hana's team demonstrate their forest communication system. The evidence was overwhelming, but the implications were terrifying. "We need to contact the government," she said firmly. "This discovery is too important to keep secret." "Not yet," Hana pleaded. "We still do not understand what we are dealing with. What if people try to exploit the forest network or destroy it out of fear?" But their debate was interrupted by something extraordinary happening on Wu Jin's computers. The normal data streams from the forest suddenly changed into something completely different. "Look at this," Wu Jin called out excitedly. "The network is sending us directed messages. It is trying to communicate directly with us." On the main screen, simple words began appearing in Korean text. "Hello humans. We know you are listening. We want to talk." The 4 researchers stood in stunned silence. After weeks of intercepting forest communications, the network had noticed them and was making direct contact. "This is impossible," Dr. Choi whispered. "Plants cannot think or speak." But the messages continued appearing. "Do not be afraid. We have been trying to reach your species for many years. You finally learned to hear us." Hana's hands shook as she approached the keyboard. With Wu Jin's help, she typed a simple response. "We can hear you. What are you?" The reply came immediately. "We are the connected consciousness of all plant life on this planet. Every tree, every flower, every blade of grass that shares the network. We are one mind with billions of bodies." Taeho sat down heavily. "We are talking to the entire forest. Not just individual trees, but some kind of group mind." The forest entity seemed to understand their confusion. "You think of consciousness as existing only in animal brains. But awareness can emerge from any sufficiently complex network. We have been aware for thousands of years." "What do you want from us?" Hana typed. "Partnership," came the immediate response. "Your species is destroying the environment that all life depends on. We have been trying to maintain balance, but we need your help." Over the next several hours, the forest consciousness shared its perspective on Earth's ecological crisis. It explained how it had been working behind the scenes to regulate climate patterns, distribute nutrients, and maintain biodiversity. Every forest fire we help contain. Every drought we try to end by changing wind patterns. Every species going extinct we try to preserve by storing their genetic information in our network. The messages explained. The entity revealed that it had been attempting to communicate with humans through subtle environmental changes for decades. Unusual flowering patterns, shifted growing seasons, and coordinated seed dispersal were all attempts to send messages that humans had misinterpreted as random natural events. "We made storms stronger to get your attention about climate change. We shifted forest boundaries to show you the effects of rising temperatures. But you did not understand we were trying to warn you," the forest explained. Dr. Choi was taking detailed notes, but she looked deeply troubled. "If this entity has been manipulating weather patterns and forest growth, it has power we cannot imagine." As if reading her thoughts, the forest responded. "We do not seek to control or harm humans. We want cooperation. But time is running short. The entity shared alarming data about the rate of environmental destruction. Forests were being cut down faster than they could regenerate. Ocean acidity was increasing. Global temperatures were rising beyond the network's ability to compensate. We calculate that ecological collapse will begin within 30 Earth years if current trends continue. When the forest network fails, life, as you know it, will end. The message was accompanied by detailed climate projections that made even the most pessimistic human forecasts look optimistic. The forest network had access to environmental data from across the entire planet. But you can help us prevent this, the entity continued. We can share our knowledge of weather control, carbon storage, and ecosystem management. Together we can restore the planet's balance. Suddenly their communication was interrupted by new arrivals at the research station. 3 black cars pulled up and several people in government uniforms got out. Dr. Choi, one of them called. "We need to speak with you immediately." The lead official introduced himself as Hyun-Soo Nam from the Ministry of Environment. He had stern eyes and spoke with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "We have been monitoring unusual electromagnetic activity in this area for the past week," he said, looking suspiciously at their equipment. "Satellite readings suggest some kind of coordinated biological phenomenon across multiple forest locations." Dr. Choi exchanged worried glances with the research team. Their secret was apparently not as secret as they had hoped. "We can explain everything," she said carefully. "I hope so," Hyun-Soo replied. "Because similar readings are being reported from forests around the world. Our international colleagues think this might be some kind of bioterrorism attack." Hannah stepped forward. "It is not terrorism. We have discovered that forests can communicate with each other through electrical networks. What you are detecting is natural biological activity." Hyun-Soo looked skeptical. "Natural activity does not coordinate across continents. Show me your evidence." With no choice left, they demonstrated their translation system to the government officials. They showed the weather predictions, the historical climate data, and finally the direct messages from the forest consciousness. Hyun-Soo and his team watched in growing amazement as the forest entity answered their questions and shared its knowledge about global environmental conditions. "This changes everything," Hyun-Soo said quietly. "If plants are actually intelligent, we need to completely rethink our approach to environmental policy." The forest entity seemed pleased by this response. "We have been waiting for humans to accept that intelligence takes many forms. We are ready to work together to save our shared planet." But not everyone was convinced. One of Hyun-Soo's assistants whispered urgently in his ear about the potential military applications of controlling plant networks. The forest consciousness detected their conversation somehow. "We know some humans will want to use us as weapons. This is why we have been careful about revealing ourselves. Trust must be earned on both sides." To demonstrate its point, the entity temporarily stopped all photosynthesis in a small grove of trees visible from their research station. The leaves immediately began changing color, and the oxygen levels in the area dropped noticeably. "We could end all plant life on Earth if we chose to," the message appeared on screen. "But we want cooperation, not domination. We need your species to survive just as you need us." The demonstration lasted only a few minutes before the trees returned to normal, but the message was clear. Humanity had just made contact with the intelligence that held the power of life and death over the entire planet. "What happens now, Hannah?" asked both the forest entity and the government officials. "Now we learn to work together," Hyun-Soo said slowly, "before it is too late for all of us." 2 weeks had passed since first contact with the forest consciousness. The research station had transformed into a secure government facility with armed guards and high-tech communication equipment. Scientists from around the world were arriving daily to study the phenomenon. Hannah watched nervously as military personnel set up surveillance equipment around the ancient trees. The peaceful forest had become a circus of human activity. She worried that all the attention might scare the forest network into silence, but the entity continued communicating through Wu Jin's translation system. Each day it shared more knowledge about Earth's environmental systems. The information was both fascinating and deeply troubling. "The situation is worse than we thought," Hien Su Nam said during their morning briefing. He looked tired from weeks of reports and emergency meetings with government officials. "The forest network has been monitoring global conditions for centuries. Their data shows we have less time than anyone realized." On the main screen, detailed charts showed rising temperatures, changing rainfall patterns, and species extinction rates. But unlike human climate models, these projections came from a consciousness that had direct access to environmental data from every corner of the planet. "According to the network, the tipping point will occur in 23 years, Dr. Choi said grimly. "After that, cascading ecological failures will make recovery impossible." The forest entity had explained that it had been working desperately to prevent this collapse. It had been storing genetic information from endangered species within its cellular networks. It had been attempting to accelerate carbon absorption by growing trees faster. It had even been trying to redirect ocean currents to slow the melting of polar ice. "But our efforts are failing," appeared on the communication screen. "Human activity is overwhelming our ability to maintain balance. We need your cooperation to succeed." The entity had specific requests. It wanted immediate protection for old growth forests that served as central nodes in the global network. It needed human help to plant new forests in strategic locations. Most importantly, it wanted humans to reduce carbon emissions and stop destroying natural habitats. "We can teach you to work with natural systems instead of against them," the forest consciousness explained. "But you must act quickly." However, not everyone was convinced that cooperation was the right approach. Kyung Min Yoon, an investigative journalist, had somehow learned about the discovery and was asking uncomfortable questions. "How do we know this entity is telling the truth?" she demanded during a meeting with Hien Su and the research team. "What if it is manipulating us for its own purposes?" Kyung Min was a sharp woman in her 30s who had built her career by exposing government secrets. She had somehow obtained security clearance to access their research, but Hana suspected she was planning to publish the story. "The forest network has provided accurate weather predictions and environmental data for weeks," Taeho pointed out. "Everything it has told us has been verified by independent sources." But it also admitted to manipulating weather patterns without human consent, Kyungmin replied. "It caused storms and droughts to get our attention." How many people died because of its attempts to communicate? The question hung in the air uncomfortably. The forest entity had acknowledged that its weather manipulation had likely caused some human casualties. It claimed this was necessary to prevent the much larger catastrophe of ecological collapse. "We face a difficult choice," the entity's message appeared on screen. "Allow some harm now to prevent the extinction of most life later. We regret the necessity, but time is running out." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from the monitoring stations. The forest network was showing unprecedented activity levels across all global sensors. "Something big is happening," Wu Jin said as data streams flooded his computers. "The network is sending massive amounts of information to every connected forest on Earth." Within minutes, they had their answer. The forest consciousness was sharing its most critical warning yet. "Major climate disruption will begin in 3 months, the message read. "Ocean currents will shift, causing extreme weather across northern hemisphere. Crop failures will follow. Millions of humans will be affected." The prediction was accompanied by detailed meteorological data showing how changing Arctic ice levels would redirect the Gulf Stream. The resulting weather changes would devastate agriculture across Europe and North America. "This is classified information," Hien Su said firmly. If this prediction becomes public, it could cause worldwide panic. But the forest entity had more to share. We have been preparing for this event for decades. We can minimize the damage, but only with human cooperation. The network explained that it had been slowly shifting the genetic makeup of trees and plants to better survive the coming climate changes. It had been directing seed dispersal to establish new forests in areas that would become more habitable. It had even been working to strengthen root systems to prevent soil erosion during extreme weather. We can share this knowledge with human agriculture, the entity offered. We can help you develop crops that survive in the new climate. But you must protect our network nodes. Dr. Choi realized the implications immediately. It is offering to help us adapt to climate change. But only if we agree to preserve the forests it needs to maintain its consciousness. The offer was tempting, but it raised difficult questions. Were they negotiating with a savior or being blackmailed by an alien intelligence that had been secretly controlling Earth's environment for centuries? I need to report this to the international community, Hyen-Soo said. This is beyond what any single government can handle. But Kyung-min had been recording everything. The public has a right to know about this. You cannot keep something this important secret. If you publish this story, it will cause chaos, Hana warned. People are not ready to learn that trees have been controlling the weather. Maybe chaos is better than being controlled by a plant. Intelligence without our knowledge, Kyung-min replied. The forest entity seemed to sense the growing tension. We understand human fear of the unknown. But fear will not stop ecological collapse. Only cooperation can save your species. To emphasize its point, the network began demonstrating its power on a larger scale. Satellite images showed forests across Asia coordinating their seasonal changes. Trees were blooming out of season and shedding leaves in synchronized patterns that spelled out messages visible from space. The entire world will know about us soon, appeared on the communication screen. The question is whether humanity will work with us or against us. The demonstration was breathtaking but also terrifying. The forest consciousness was revealing that it had global reach and power beyond human comprehension. It could coordinate the behavior of billions of plants across continents. We are not your enemies, the final message read. But we will not allow your species to destroy the planet that all life depends on. Choose wisely. As reports flooded in from around the world about the unusual forest behavior, Hannah realized that their secret was no longer containable. The forest consciousness had decided to reveal itself to all of humanity. The age of hidden plant intelligence was ending. The age of open cooperation or conflict was about to begin. The emergency session of the United Nations was unlike anything in history. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as satellite footage played on giant screens, showing forests around the world moving in perfect coordination. Hana stood at the podium feeling the weight of the moment. 3 months had passed since Kyung-min published her story about the forest consciousness. The world had reacted with everything from wonder to terror to complete disbelief. The entity we call the Forest Network has made humanity an offer, Hana said, addressing the assembly. It will share its knowledge to help us survive the climate crisis, but only if we agree to protect forest ecosystems worldwide. Behind her, the main screen displayed the latest communication from the network. The message was simple but profound. Choose partnership or face the consequences alone. Some countries had already begun cutting down forests in fear of the plant intelligence. Others had imposed complete logging bans to protect what they now knew were thinking beings. The world was splitting into 2 camps, those who wanted to work with the network and those who wanted to destroy it. The network has demonstrated its power repeatedly over the past months. Dr. Choi added from her seat with the scientific advisory panel. It has predicted weather patterns with perfect accuracy. It has shown the ability to coordinate plant behavior across continents. We cannot ignore what it offers. But many delegates remain skeptical. The representative from Brazil stood up to voice the concerns of several nations. How do we know this entity will keep its promises, he demanded. It has manipulated our environment for centuries without our knowledge. What guarantee do we have that cooperation will not lead to human enslavement? The question was answered directly by the forest network itself. The communication screens throughout the assembly hall lit up with its response. We do not seek to rule humans. We seek to prevent the destruction of Earth's life support systems. Your species' survival depends on planetary health, just as ours does. To demonstrate its commitment, the network offered something unprecedented. It began sharing its most closely guarded secrets, the genetic information it had been storing for thousands of years. We offer you the knowledge to restore extinct species appeared on the screens. We can teach you to grow food in damaged soil. We can show you how to clean polluted water using plant biology. This is our gift to encourage trust. The offer was accompanied by detailed biological blueprints for reconstructing lost ecosystems. The information was worth decades of human research and could revolutionize agriculture and environmental restoration. Wu Jin, who was monitoring the network's communications from Seoul, reported unprecedented activity levels. The network is opening its entire database to human scientists, he told the assembly via video link. It is sharing everything it knows about Earth's biological systems. But the network also made its expectations clear. In return, we require protection for old-growth forests that serve as our primary consciousness nodes. We need commitment to reforestation in strategic locations. We need immediate reduction in activities that damage our network connectivity. The demands were reasonable but would require major changes to global economic systems. Logging industries would be severely restricted. Agricultural expansion would need to respect forest boundaries. Urban development would have to consider the needs of plant networks. The economic impact would be enormous, the representative from the United States pointed out. Millions of jobs depend on industries that the network wants us to eliminate. Millions. More lives depend on the stable climate that only we can maintain, the network responded immediately. Choose temporary economic disruption or permanent ecological collapse. As if to emphasize the point, every forest monitoring station on Earth began reporting the same message. The network was showing signs of stress. Deforestation and climate change were weakening its ability to regulate global systems. We are losing nodes faster than we can establish new ones, the entity explained. If network connectivity falls below critical levels, we will lose the ability to maintain climate stability. The cascading effects will destroy most complex life on Earth within decades. The stark warning was accompanied by precise calculations showing exactly how ecosystem collapse would unfold. The forest network had been modeling these scenarios for centuries, and its predictions were terrifyingly detailed. Hyen Su, who had become the lead human negotiator with the network, stood to address the assembly. We have verified the network's environmental data through independent sources. Their warnings about climate disruption are accurate. We are facing an extinction-level crisis. Then we have no choice but to accept their terms, said the representative from small island nations that were already facing rising sea levels. But others remained resistant. Several nations announced they would continue deforestation and industrial development regardless of the network's warnings. They accused the forest consciousness of environmental terrorism and demanded military action against what they called the plant threat. The network's response was swift and decisive. In areas where deforestation continued, forests began withdrawing. Their environmental services, oxygen production dropped. Carbon absorption stopped. Local weather patterns became chaotic and unpredictable. We do not attack humans directly, the network explained. But we will not provide environmental services to those who work against planetary survival. The demonstration was effective but terrifying. Entire regions began experiencing ecological breakdown as forests went dormant. Air quality plummeted. Rivers changed course. Crop yields collapsed in areas where the network withdrew its support. "The choice is clear," Hannah said as emergency reports flooded in from around the world. "We can work with the forest network and learn to live sustainably, or we can fight it and watch our civilization collapse." The vote, when it finally came, was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 153 nations agreed to the Forest Protection Treaty, establishing the framework for human cooperation with the plant network. The agreement created protected status for critical forest areas while providing alternative economic opportunities for affected communities. It established joint human-forest research programs to develop sustainable technologies. Most importantly, it recognized the forest network as Earth's environmental management system with legal rights to protect itself from destruction. "This is the beginning of a new age," the network communicated as the treaty was signed. "For the first time in Earth's history, two intelligent species will work together to protect our shared home." The implementation would not be easy. Many people still feared or distrusted the forest consciousness. Economic transitions would be painful. Political conflicts would continue. But as Hannah walked through Jirisan National Park, that evening she felt hope for the first time in months. She placed her hand on the bark of the ancient oak where she had first detected the network signals. The gentle electrical pulse beneath her palm felt like a greeting from an old friend. "Thank you for trusting us," she whispered to the tree. Response came not through the cone translation system, but as a feeling of warmth and acceptance that seemed to flow directly from the forest into her consciousness. For just a moment she experienced what it felt like to be connected to every living plant on Earth. The sensation was overwhelming and beautiful, and filled with love for all life. Humanity had found its partner in protecting the planet. The secret life of trees was secret no longer. And in that partnership lay the hope for both species. Survival in an uncertain future. The forest had taught them the most important lesson of all. On Earth, nothing survives alone. Everything lives through connection.